Come to order, please. I want to welcome everybody to this regular scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting for June the 24th. If you have cell phones or other electronic devices, please silence them at this time. We'll ask Ms. Sarah if she will do the invocation and pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today and to serve the great people of Walton County. We ask that you bless everyone represented here and their families. We ask that you guide and direct us in every decision that we make today, that it will be in the best interest of the people we serve and you, our Lord and Savior. In Jesus Christ, amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get moving to the agenda, I want to congratulate Commissioner Commander for her election. She was unopposed and therefore will start her third term. Is that correct?
Correct.
Congratulations. All right, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under additions and deletions, under the consent agenda, we're asking you to add a request to approve a resolution regarding the Southern Tire Mart property located in the Mossy Head Industrial Park. This will be a resolution establishing the highest and best use for that property. We're asking that we add under admin a proposal to provide Sunday garbage pickup along Scenic Gulf Drive in 30A. Those are the additions. Under the consent agenda, we're asking that what you see on number 2 under the clerk's items and the strike-through, we simply want to move the June 6th special meeting minutes to a separate item for a separate vote, so it won't be included in the consent agenda, but the June 10th special meeting and the June 10th regular meeting to be left in the consent agenda for that approval.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. I need the approval of the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This will be approval of the minutes for the June 6, 2014 special meeting.
Mr. Chairman, before you take a vote on that, I need to recuse myself because of the previous recusals for business reasons.
Okay. So noted.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did we do both of them at one time? I thought you just said one.
Which one more?
Did we approve both minutes at the same time?
Yeah,
Yes.
the first ones were still on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, Sarah Bowers, the city manager from the city of Phoenix Springs, is here with us today to discuss the possibility of the county and the city working together to move some recreation facilities that they have at Gene Hurley Park that has to be relocated. There's been some discussion and conversation with Ms. Bowers and the city about the potential of locating those facilities at We Care Park, and she's here to discuss that with
Welcome,
you, ladies
Sarah.
and gentlemen, today.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I trust that all of y'all have the map included in with your packet. Basically, the city just wants to continue working with the county in the relocation. There may be even options that are better for our citizens up here, and just continue working the county and the city together in this project. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to go first, sir?
Go ahead. Chairman.
I'll go ahead and go first. Chair has some privilege,
Yes, sir.
doesn't it? Okay. Ms. Sarah, on the north boundary line of the present We Care Park, the city got some land from the school board.
Yes, sir.
How many acres is that up there?
It's approximately 5 to 6 acres.
5 or 6?
Yeah.
Is any of that
No,
basically?
I'm sorry, around 10. I'm sorry. Excuse
Okay.
me. Go ahead.
But I know there's a ravine that goes through it basically on the west side of that property line.
Yes.
But is there a developmental area on that southeast corner of that, on that flat plateau up in there?
Yes, but in review, the topography of the land is such that fill dirt required. The city was looking at $500,000 in fill dirt alone.
Is that filling in the ravine, or is that just?
That's just on the east side, because the ravine we were having to leave alone because it's considered wetlands.
Right.
The most we could do would be a walking area through there.
Okay. My concern, just to let you know, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, having been active in sports in this city and county for decades, is the building of these 3 fields here that you're talking about, along with the soccer field, is kind of mixing the big boys with the small kids, and are concerned that there's such close proximity to the other amenities in there, the splash parks and other kiddie amenities, that we kind of have a little concern as to how we can segregate that area away from the small people so that it doesn't impact them. Have there been any thought put into that yet?
Haven't had that detailed of a conversation.
Okay.
But we do want to continue. And there, council came up with other options as well, because they had the same concern as far as, mixing the older kids with the younger kids, yes. And
Do you know, under the grant requirements that you have to put in Gene Hurley,
yes.
does it have to be located within the city limits, or could there be an interlocal agreement between the county and the city with some property that may not be inside the city?
As long as the funding agency is happy with the relocation, and it's just central to the citizens.
Right.
Because they saw out there where we have it now at our airport that it just isn't central to the citizens, and so they had agreed, on the back side of the property. That's what we were hoping for, but the topography is such, we could use some of it.
Okay.
As far as that goes. And,
All right.
there's other options that
Couldn't
we're
you
looking
use some
at.
of it for the playground? I mean, for smaller children, you could move the teeter-totters back there, couldn't you, and the seesaws and all that kind of stuff to that piece of property and still have walking trail maybe?
That is a possibility, yes,
And
ma'am.
move the little kids further back. And then keep the ball fields where it's relatively flat, I think there's still, I've been talking with Shane, I think there's a lot of opportunity to get everything we want out there. May just have to tweak it a little. And we still have, even if you look at the map, even with the soccer fields right there, there's still some wooded area that we possibly could use up close to the fence. and maybe fence off for the smaller kids. Make them in a fenced-in area.
Yes.
Mr. Enfield?
Sarah, a couple quick questions. At least the memo I've got didn't say what it is that they expect the county to help with. What county effort are you looking at in helping to accomplish this?
Thing the county will provide. I have not had a chance to sit down with Mr. Jones yet and start discussions. This is going to benefit the citizens in Defuniak, and they're all Walton County citizens as well.
Well, I understand it, but we've got, as most people are aware, public works crews have been up to the necks in alligators with regards to all of the road washouts, the continuing grade problems we've got right now. So I just trying to find out what you anticipate the county to be doing, and are there going to be any material costs that you expect the county to pick up?
I hope to have conversation in reference to that. Yes, sir. Because it is benefiting the citizens of both Defuniak and Walton County.
I'd like to see deferring any action on this until we get a more complete picture of what the expectation of the
that's
county
what
is.
I think that's what she's asking
That's what
for.
we're asking.
That's
Let
what-
Mr.
That's all
Pridgeon
this is.
respond.
Yeah, I think if we need to, if we're going to move forward with this, we need to get staff and everyone involved with the city and the county to look at and come back with a recommendation of what we need to, what we're talking about and what we need what you're asking us to do.
And we do need to look
Okay.
at the whole
And I'm
layout
good with that.
more and everything as far as for the kids, for the citizens, and make sure that it's the best for them.
Okay, if I understand
I have
the
one more
board, is that we just direct staff to move forward with meeting with Sarah and her staff to come up with it, to cover everything. What you're looking at is the layout, what costs are involved, what costs to the county, et cetera.
I would ask one more question. I know that we pay a certain price for the splash pad out at WeCare Park, the city water and sewer and that sort of thing. If we're going to enter into an agreement, so to speak, a partnership, that to be looked at, that we no longer have to pay water and sewer to the WeCare Park.
I wish I could do that, but we have bond ordinances for water and sewer that says that we will not provide services for free of charge, because
But if
then it
it's-
goes on other.
But if it's for the city, I mean, if the city's going to be in partnership with it, do you charge yourself water and sewer?
Yes,
Okay.
and we pay the bill.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
we
maybe
do.
it could be rebated back to us in some form.
Okay,
Everything, would be on the table
There
to
you
look at, absolutely.
so, all right, well, I think the staff got an understanding of what we want to do.
Need a
Okay.
motion?
I don't think so, it's just direction. Okay, Miss Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I did. I doggone it. Let me go ahead and correct that. Is there any public comments at this time concerning any agenda item? Mr. Osborne, come forward, state your name for the record, confine your comments to the 5-minute time limit. Thank you.
Yeah, for the record, Alan Osborne. Yeah, I attended the planning meeting the other day, and there's going to be something, looks like it'll be tabled to July 8th, but something that came out of that was, I'd like to read you, it's my understanding the position of the county is that the May 30th letter is the guidance from the DEO on the development within the DRI. In that it says, under stormwater, the application for development approval incorporated into the Sandestin DRI development order provides that stormwater will retain runoff from a 3-year, 24-hour storm event, 6.7 inches, with no discharge into the Choctawhatchee Bay. Well, I think what's happened, asking some questions at the planning board, is one, the planning board is unaware of what the standards of the DRI, because each DRI is different in the state and could have different adopted standards. While you have standardized standards in the comp plan, this standard is a higher standard due to the density. And I believe what's happened is we've reviewed some projects and we've not reviewed them to the required stormwater design standards. And so I would ask you to give direction to staff, and part of that reason is the engineering review was done by an outside contract. And I'm not saying they did it wrong, but if they weren't told of the higher requirements, they probably reviewed it to the comp plan. And that necessarily would change the whole position of the county, because I believe you're getting sued and a couple other issues because they say they're entitled to these development orders in this building. But you're not entitled if you haven't submitted a plan that meets the required stormwater drainage. Now, it would require this board to adopt lesser stormwater drainage, which I can't see anybody doing with the problems in this county, and you would have to say that you wanted direct discharge into the Choctawhatchee Bay. I just can't see anybody saying that. But be that as it may, you've received 3 written guidance from the DEO that this is what the standard for stormwater is. And I ask you to direct the staff to review all projects that have not issued building orders or before the Planning Commission within the DRI, that the engineering standard be reviewed to the required drainage standards. Secondly, in that same letter, it addresses the interior of Driftwood is currently is not built to the required standard. Nobody should be authorized a building permit in there until they've met the required standard. They want the permit and they're entitled to it, but they have the requirements of meeting the standard. And you've suspended them in there before for less. Here's a statement on the same letter that you're saying is the standard from the DEO, and here's a statement saying this is out of compliance. It would require them to do an NOPC to come forward. So those are kind of my two requests, because some of that's on the agenda later today. I think it'll be continued. But you cannot ignore the requirements of the development order, because you'll get yourself into more trouble. If you're going to tell them we're going to follow this standard, which I think is a great thing, then that includes the submission to meet stormwater requirements of what's required. So before anything else goes forward, I know you can't undo some of the stuff that's long been built and done, but before any more projects are approved in there, especially with your stormwater issues, and you've got objection letters from some of the people right next to those projects, it would be hard for them to find out that we've issued permits on something that doesn't meet the required standards. So I'd ask you to address those issues today before we move forward with any of this stuff on the agenda that's coming forward on those projects. Engineering has to be directed to what those standards are, whether they agree with them or not. That's what they are in writing. And the great thing about the water standard is this, and some of you may understand this. Those same water standards are in the 1976 development order and the 1984 amended development order. So it wouldn't matter if you won or lost. The drainage standards would be there, if you understand what I'm saying. So I'd ask you to enforce those standards, because we've asked for years and we got 4 answers on it, and they're all the same. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item on the agenda is a request from the Sheriff's Office to approve a service agreement with CenturyLink Sales Solution for the annual maintenance on the 911 Data Master equipment. And Major President's here if you have any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is regarding some right-of-way and property that the DOT is requesting in regards to their expansion of US 98 property. There's a parcel that the DOT, as depicted there, has that the county owns, that the DOT has requested to purchase. They've actually made us an offer. We don't think that offer is sufficient at this time, so we want to put our negotiator-in-chief, Mr. Sunday, in charge of negotiating with the DOT. We instruct him that anything over twice what they're offered probably wouldn't be acceptable based on his history. But anyway, associated with that are some portions of right-of-way that they also want to acquire as part of the expansion project. So today we would simply just ask for your permission to negotiate with DOT for that property to determine what's the most we can get out of it for your consideration. Any negotiated proposal will certainly come back to this board for approval.
I would suggest that we allow Bulldog Sunday to continue his negotiations.
We need that in the form of a motion.
It's so made, sir.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is in moving forward with the relocation of the United Fire Station. We issued an invitation to bid for a metal building and the erection of that building as part of that relocation. It's our recommendation that GLC Contracting be awarded that as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are you recommending the regular cost or the expedited delivery cost?
We're the expedited.
And
Thank you. Second. Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. And
Opposed?
they have been checked out. Finance Department has checked them out. Okay, thank you.
Motion carries.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is again in regards to the relocation of the United Fire Station. In the build-out of that property, we need the services of a general contractor to do permitting and such. We issued an invitation to bid. We had one response from Earl Alford Construction for $4,000, and we recommend that we accept that bid and move forward with Mr. Alford to provide those services.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's budget time, and it's time for a budget workshop. We would recommend that the board approve to hold a budget workshop on July 10th, 2014 at 9 a.m. Here in this room in the Walton County Courthouse.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item, Mr. Chairman, we're requesting to do an invitation to bid on recyclable materials from the landfill. Over time, we sell those materials, but we don't have any somewhat on the open market. We think we can get some better pricing if we consolidate those efforts and bring it into one purchaser. So we'd like your permission to do an invitation to bid for the materials that we collect and able to recycle from the landfill.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, last item under admin, it didn't make it into your board book, and we apologize for that. We were just late getting the information. We have requested and received a proposal from Waste Management to provide residential pickup on Sunday mornings along Scenic Gulf Drive and County Road 38. They have agreed to do that at an hourly rate of $190 an hour. We think it'll take 4 to 5 hours, and so there's 10 Sundays left between now and Labor Day at the end of the season, so the total cost we anticipate would be approximately $20,000. We have sufficient funds in our current budget for our solid waste collection line item to cover those costs. So we would like to begin that this Sunday. So with your permission, we would do that. We recommend approval, subject to any questions you may
So
have.
moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bagby.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The first item under us on the agenda is to request permission to apply to become members of the Riverway South Apalachicola Choctahatchee organization. That is the regional tourism board council that encompasses currently the 8 counties that touch on either the Apalachicola or the Choctahatchee rivers. We are the only county in northwest Florida that touches one of those rivers that is not a member. One of their objectives is to have the Choctahatchee River designated as the Apalachicola River recently was as a blue waterway on the national recreational trails. And I got from the meeting last week that I went to with them one of their maps that I've distributed to y'all, and I've brought plenty of copies for the public if they want them, that shows some of the points that they highlight in each of the counties. I think some of the points that we would probably highlight in ours would be our trails, our coastal dune lakes, and some of the other things that are within the destination. So we would ask that you approve us becoming a member, the county becoming a member of the Riverway South Apalachicola Choctahatchee organization.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
On updates, I've introduced all of you to Jennifer Vigil, who's here in the front row. She'll be making appointments to come by and meet with all of you and discuss what your desires and recommendations and priorities are for the TDC. I also have talked to Brad Pickle this week. He's coming in the 1st of August, and we'll be contacting y'all to try to set up meetings. We think we have finally gotten the easement language hammered out with the Corps of Engineers. There was a problem because this is a federal project. On every other federal project, they've required an easement, a construction easement in perpetuity. And, of course, we had a lot of feedback from property owners down along the coast that they weren't willing to give that easement right in perpetuity. We've finally gotten the Corps to agree to make it coterminous so that if the project ever ends, remember this is a 50-year project, if the project ever ends, then that easement would also terminate. So we'll like to set up meetings with y'all and Brad and myself when he comes in the first week of August, and then we'd probably the first meeting in August would ask you to approve that easement language. And then just a milestone today. Today is the first meeting in this chamber of the North Walton Events Advisory Committee. The mayors of the three communities and the individuals y'all appointed and the chamber rep will be meeting here to discuss how we can highlight the events that go on in this part of the county to the tourists that are in the south end of the county. Subject to your questions, that's all we have.
Okay, any questions? Miss Jennifer, if you don't mind, would you stand and so everybody in the audience can see who you are? All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Davis.
Commissioners, I have three items. The first item is an amended disbursement schedule for the Walton County versus BP oil spill litigation we'd entered into. This was the money that we've now received that was held back as part of the settlement with BP for attorney fees. We've now received that money from those attorneys, so we needed an amended disbursement schedule approved and authorize the chairman to sign it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Question. How much is it, Mark? I caught you off guard.
I want to say I had 250 in my brain, but 270 I think is about the number. Yes, sir. And we've received it a pretty good while ago. This just didn't get to us until this week, or last week. But we received it about 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. The next item is also part of finance. As you know, we're borrowing money with a current loan with SunTrust to purchase and build property and build a park, a recreational park across the bay. This resolution allows us, according to our bond counsel, to use some of the funds to pay some of our expenses associated with that borrowing, and we just need a resolution passed authorizing that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. The third item is the sheriff's office had a forfeiture action a number of years ago and received in the forfeiture action an agreement that they would receive and did receive in the forfeiture agreement certain real property. For some reason, after the forfeiture agreement was signed and recorded, there was a deed prepared, and the person that was a defendant in the forfeiture action deeded the property to Walton County, Florida. And when it was time for the sheriff's office to sell the property to collect the funds to put in their forfeiture account from the sale of the property, this deed showed up in the title search, and so I need you to authorize a quitclaim deed from the county to the people purchasing this property directly. And of course, the sheriff's office also want to do the same thing, just make sure the title's nice and clear for the folks who are purchasing the property. So I'm asking for a motion to authorize the sale of the property and the chairman to sign the quitclaim deed.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you,
motion
Commissioner.
carries.
That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Commander, have anything?
No, sir.
Commissioner Infeld?
No, sir.
Commissioner Pridgeon?
No, sir.
I have nothing at this time. Citizens' request, Miss Linda Sumblin. If you will, state your name for the record.
Linda Sumblin, the Executive Director of Career Source, Walton and Okaloosa Counties. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for the time that I get to come before you this morning to present our 2014-15 annual budget. We're not asking for any local dollars. Our funding is federal funding via the state and also foundation grants. Our current budget proposed to you today is $3.7 million, which is an increase of an approximately $200,000 from our previous year. And this is based on the increase of receiving some additional grants into the local Walton community that we're incredibly excited about. Our funding, again, is federally, state, and foundation driven. We're required on an annual basis to have an independent audit and also very transparent, strict parameters as far as state-driven, and we're very pleased to share with you again that our recent audits and monitoring have found no concerns or no findings, and we're quite proud of that transparency that we will continue to pledge to deliver to you. Our funding is primarily used for human capital, delivering the services, and also for facilities. We have 3 full-service one-stop centers. We have 1 in Freeport, and then we also have a satellite office at Walton Career Development Center. So we're incredibly excited to be able to deliver services in 2 areas in Walton County. I'll pause and ask if there's any questions from the commissioners regarding our request for the review of the budget.
Have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I think you should know that about 10 days ago I attended a conference over in Okaloosa Island, and Ms. Sumlin and the group there received accolades for what they're doing, especially with regards to veterans in getting job opportunities. And she's worked very hard to tie this in with what's going on in Mossy Head at the industrial park and the new developments out there. And I just wanted to say thank you to her publicly for the efforts and the continued efforts that are going to come under this budget to help employ our veterans, both wounded warriors and regular warriors that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that, and we appreciate your time you give to us so freely. Thank you.
Any other questions on that topic? Seeing none, I think, Ms. Linda, you got the next agenda item also.
Thank you. Yes, sir. And a continuing guideline outlined by the governor in the Workforce Accountability Act, we're required to have membership appointed by the Walton County Commissioners to serve our board. We have a 28-member board serving Walton and Okaloosa County. It is private sector driven. We've had a recent resignation due to work constraints. Kelly Jo Kilberg with the Walton Chamber is bringing before us today a nomination for that replacement, and that is Jackie Beavers with the Hilton Sandestin Golf Beach and Resort to serve as private sector representing Walton County on the Career Source Board.
Okay.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And one ending comment, as required by our bylaws, we do have election of officers. I'm pleased to share with you for this term, Pam Tedesco, representing Walton County, will serve as our chair of our board. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is any public comment at this time? Come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Bob Hudson, and I'm going to speak to you with 3 different voices today. First off, I want to speak to you as a commissioner with South Walton Mosquito Control District. Earlier, we came before this body and asked that you make some changes to the process that would help us protect our ditches that we have with all the flooding that's there and the damage that was done to our ditches. We're working with FEMA in a mitigation program trying to improve those ditches to prevent future damage and also to improve flow. We really need to get something done in terms of protecting those accesses to those ditches, Bill. And hopefully we can move forward. Our attorney has been hospitalized, and I'm aware of that, and hopefully we can move forward with that. Second thing, I sent each and every one of you some photos of some mosquito trap counts the other day. They came out of Driftwood Estates. Those mosquito traps were the most heavily I've ever seen. There were over 1,000 mosquitoes and 200 yellow flies that were in those traps for one night. And that is an area that we're very interested because of the costs that we have in treating those areas. And so those 2 issues that I've talked about are kind of tied together, and hopefully we can do that in a timely fashion as we go forward. Now I'm going to put on my hat as director of the of the Walton County Taxpayers Association, and I know you set a budget hearing today for July the 10th at 9 o'clock. Our organization reviews budgets very closely, and we're asking that you make the documents available to us prior to that, and not to us, but to any public official any member of the public that chooses to look at those budget requests at least 7 days in advance. If you can't meet that, hopefully we can get it 3 days in advance, but 7 days would allow us to not crowd the agenda as you're discussing things with questions that we could ask and have answered prior to that. Is there any way that we could, Mr. Jones, see if we can do that?
As soon as they're available, they will be available. As soon as they're completed, we'll make them available. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Appreciate that. Third thing I want to put my hat on as a private citizen, I live in Santa Rosa Beach off of Highway 393 South in a subdivision called Santa Rosa Ridge. We have an issue that you're probably aware of. We had a death along 393 where a pedestrian was struck by an automobile. For several years, our neighborhood has been asking that we have a bike path along that road. We understand there's some issues with mitigation that would need to be done, but hopefully we can move forward with something. I drove in from Atlanta from Anniston, Alabama on Sunday night, and it was amazing to me at 10 o'clock at night the number of people that were either riding bicycles along 393 or walking along 393, and it's a very dangerous situation. The other aspect of it is the TDC there's a bike path that comes from 30A to our subdivision, and it ends right there. And of course, the TDC is now maintaining the bike path portion. The county is mowing the other portion of 393 from our neighborhood to 98. And hopefully we can coordinate that, because you go along and you got grass readily mowed, and then you come to the other section and grass is 4 feet tall. So hopefully we can coordinate that. We're a gateway. I know that there's a rumble strip that's there right now measuring the traffic count, and I believe it's going to be a very high number, but hopefully those are some things that you can look into. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hudson? Mr. Hudson, I'm sorry, I was out of town last week, but I don't remember getting that email from you about the mosquito. Would you resend it?
I absolutely did.
I didn't
get it either.
I didn't get
I was
it.
out of town, too.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It was just a picture of a dish about this big around with 1,000 or more mosquitoes that we trapped in one night.
I don't remember seeing it.
And we treat those areas with what's called a larvicide, trying to prevent the hatch and everything. But there's a couple of areas that are very wet. How's that? And at this day and age, our issue is also concern over a new virus that is being brought into the state of Florida called ChicV. The Florida Mosquito Control Association has put a task force together to try and come up with a plan to deal with that. I think there were 40 cases in South Florida already, and we're very concerned about
Humans?
Yes, ma'am. Transmitted by mosquitoes. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Dottie? If you will, state your name for the record.
Dottie Ness, Beach Breeze. I had a question about the action you approved on the garbage pickup on Scenic Gulf Drive, and what was the other street?
38.
38, okay. We had had concerns relayed to us about that situation also, and part of what was told to us was that there was a problem with the cans staying out on the road all the time almost. I wondered if what you approved today would address that in any way.
Not specifically, but we do intend to continue looking into how to best alleviate that problem. What we wanted to do with this action today, what we were requesting the board to do, is give us a means to get the garbage off of Scenic Gulf Drive and 30A in a timely manner, which would be early Sunday morning for the move-in, move-out Saturdays, but then we'll address the container issue to the best we can.
Sounds good. I know a lot of people will be glad about this action.
Okay, thank you, Dottie. Ms. Harris? State your name for the record, please.
I've been here enough times to know that.
Well, I just
Suzanne Harris, a president of Edgewater Beach Condominiums First. Larry, will that include our dumpster? Will our dumpster be picked up on Sunday, or just garbage cans out on the street?
Well, right now, it's just going to be cans on the street, so that, where we have the overflowing, those that are on pools or on regular commercial side, we haven't gotten there yet.
I just needed to know because our staff is less on Sunday than on Saturday, and usually y'all pull Saturday, so I need to know that.
I'm sure if that's Saturday's your regular pool day, they'll continue to do that. What we're trying to do is get the stuff off the street. So, that's got bags piled over the cans and those type of things.
Okay, and you're going down Scenic Gulf Drive?
Going from one end of Scenic Gulf Drive to the other?
But the main place y'all have it is from Scenic Gulf Drive, where it goes. The little streets go down like Wind Dancer and all to the beach. They're going to pull off the side streets?
No, not initially. We're going to check and see what the impact of just taking the straight run down Scenic Gulf Drive and 30A and see how that works. And then if there's some adjustments to make, we'll look at that as well.
Okay, that's great. I have another question. Mark, at the planning board the other night, you said that you weren't sure, and I'd like a tape of the planning board meeting, the tape recording actually, but you said that the commissioners might not be sure of exactly what they voted for at that all-day Friday meeting. Now, if y'all sat up here for 3 and 4 years on this Driftwood Sandestin stuff, an all-day Friday, and you weren't sure what you voted on, that's a problem. But that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is, as a planning board member, we need to get all of the information, not half of it, not a part of it, but all of it. When I asked the other night that you had made the statement that Friday that y'all had had 2 different letters from the DEO. One said, well, it might be you couldn't issue any development orders, and one said you could, but we didn't have copies of the letters. Now I'm hearing, and I asked you point blank for a legal opinion that night, that whatever the planning board did wouldn't undo what the commissioners had done. And that's when you said you weren't sure the commissioners understood what they did. So my problem is, I called Wayne Dice, and I asked him, when you gave instructions to the engineer, which was Pebble Rish, and they came to us in the planning meeting, it said it met all the drainage standards. Now I'm hearing that the drainage standards from Wayne were probably just met the county standards and the state standards, but not the DRI standards. Now that's a problem. When the planning department goes out and tells an engineer to tell everybody this meets drainage or it doesn't, as much flooding as y'all have had. You've had women swimming out of their house, old ladies with their dog. As much problem as we've had with drainage, we need to be sure that we're going by, that when the planning board gets it, that we're getting the full and correct information. And if that meets drainage, I'm all for it. If it doesn't meet the drainage, somebody better appoint to them today for them to get a new drainage study done before y'all do anything, because that is awful. Drainage is the biggest problem y'all have got in this county. You've let it go on for years and years and years, and development after development after development, and flooding after flooding after flooding. And there's no way to fix the flooding you've got now without spending billions of dollars. And you cannot do something that lets it continue.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I think Mr. Dyes, you're up, or is Matt going to do it? Outstanding.
Then before we go into quasi, could we have a short recess?
Okay, commissioners asked for a short recess. We're going to take
Girl.
How much you need?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. We'll start back at
Commissioners, Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department. First item we have is a request to advertise for a request for qualifications for a hazard mitigation grant program grant writer. This is a request for qualifications for professional services.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Commissioners, we have a request for permission to propose an ordinance to amend the appropriate sections of the Land Development Code to further define the hotel room extent and related parking requirements to be applied to future hotel room development order applications.
Motion to approve.
Good motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Chairman, next item is the noise ordinance. It's my understanding that we have a request to continue.
Commissioners, we have received some public comments by email to our office that we actually have some ideas and considerations we'd like to take a little longer look at. We have made all the changes that was suggested at the last meeting, but given what was said at the last meeting and these few public comments, we think we can actually make it a little better and a little more enforceable and more easily understood. So with y'all's permission, we'd like to move that to July 8th so we'd have a little more time to finish that.
You need a motion to that effect?
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Second. But I have I know that maybe the same emails, but we got some from Ms. Nielsen and Ms. Page that pointed out some rather large loopholes that we've got in there. Will you be able to get those closed?
Yes, sir. That's the emails we're talking about. We actually have a really good noise ordinance as it relates to continuous noise, mechanical noise, and that sort of thing. And we have the ability to enforce that through code enforcement with some noise meters, and we have trained folks to do that. We're looking at keeping all the good things in that particular ordinance and just making an addition for outdoor events and other problem type areas that we have. And yes, those comments were well taken, and we appreciate them. Sure.
Okay. One thing I want to mention concerning this mechanical noise and continuous noise, we pay a significant amount of money per year for noise meters and also the training associated with those folks. And as I understand it right now, I think we have about 15 openings or 15 people can be trained for that amount of money. You correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne.
Yes, sir. I believe it's $10,000 to you can get up to 10 people, I think, okay, in the class.
And at the present time, only one in code enforcement is certified.
Yes, that's correct.
3 additional ones. I'm looking at Mr. Preston over there as to whether or not we can maybe get the remainder. Since we're paying for it, all it takes is their time to get there to get certified in the event that they might be able to support and augment what code enforcement is doing. Mr. Preston, you want to come forward to just.
Major Joe Preston with the Walton County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, yes, we would be happy to support that and augment that. While the sheriff feels very strongly that this is a regulatory issue that kind of lies in the purview of code enforcement, we understand that they don't work the same hours we do, and you don't have the support after hours and on the weekends. So, yes, we'll work to augment their representation of that responsibility.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Chairman, the next 4 items are QJ items.
Yeah, anyone who anticipates testifying on any item before the board today, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you would give to the board today would be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Has any commissioner had any ex parte contact regarding any item on the quasi-judicial?
No, but I have a conflict on the item with regard to Grand Boulevard, and I'm going to recuse myself on that item.
Thank you. And does anyone have any objections to any of the notices published or received? Hearing none. That's all yours.
Good, Mr. Dice.
Mr. Chairman, the first item is Grand Boulevard, Building S. We have a request to continue to the July 8th, 2014 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chairman,
Motion
next
carries.
three items are plats. I'll ask Mr. Carpenter to come up and handle the two water sound plats.
Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department. Item number 3 on our agenda, Winter Garden at Watersound Phase 3 plat. A request submitted by the St. Joe Company for 50 lots on 13.13 acres with the future land use of Coastal Village. All items for the plat are in order, and we request your approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Next, item number 4 is also Winter Garden at Watersound Phase 4 plat. This is submitted by the St. Joe Company for 50 lots on 23.95 acres with the future land use of Coastal Village. All requirements for this plat are in order. We request your approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Chairman, the last item on the agenda for the Planning Department is the Seabreeze South Plat. I'll ask Tim Whaler, Senior Planner, to present this.
Hi, Tim Whaler, Planning Department. This is a plat application submitted by Seas Engineering and Surveying. It's requesting the approval of the Seabreeze South plat. The project was on 1.64 acres, consisted of 8 single-family lots with a future land use of residential preservation. The plat does meet the development order requirements, Chapter 177 of Florida statutes, and Walton County's Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code.
Is there any public comments?
Motion to
Seeing none.
approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
That's all. Do you have any staff okay with everything? All right. Seeing none, stand adjourned.